The Galactic Council declared war at precisely 9 o'clock Standard Spiral Time. On Earth, it was a Tuesday. The declaration arrived the way all alien ultimatums did, loud, theatrical, and utterly convinced of its own importance. It burst across every human communication band at once, overriding news feeds, hijacking satellites, even interrupting a rerun of an ancient cooking show in rural Nebraska. The image stabilized into the towering form of High Chancellor Vrexel of the Council, his chitinous face polished to a ceremonial shine, his 4 eyes burning with righteous certainty. Behind him stood the flags of 27 interstellar empires, each one a veteran of countless conquests. Species designation human, Vrexel intoned, his voice layered with artificial gravitas. You have expanded beyond your assigned borders. You have militarized neutral space. You have refused council arbitration. By unanimous decree, the Galactic Council declares total war. He paused, savoring the moment. You will submit. Or you will be erased. The transmission cut, abruptly, to a cluttered conference room aboard Luna Command. Admiral Raymond Holt was halfway through pouring burnt coffee into a cracked mug that read World's Okayest Admiral. He looked up, blinked once, then glanced at the digital clock on the wall. 9:03. He sighed. Hell of a way to start the week, he muttered. Around him, officers stared at the screen in silence. No gasps. No panic. Just the collective, weary stillness of people who had known, deep down, that this day was coming. A junior lieutenant finally broke it. Sir, the Galactic Council just declared war on us. Holt took a sip of coffee, winced, and nodded. Yeah. I heard. Should we raise alert status? Holt considered it. What's the Martian fleet doing? Running drills. Again. And the belt? Same thing they always do. Arguing about pay and polishing guns. Holt shrugged. Then no. Keep it at standard readiness. Notify strategic, though. They'll want to pretend this is a surprise. The lieutenant hesitated. Sir, they said total war. Holt leaned back in his chair, the metal groaning under his weight. His hair was gray, his face carved with lines that didn't come from age so much as experience. He had fought humans, insurgents, corporations, and once, briefly, his own government. Aliens didn't particularly scare him. Son, he said calmly, anyone who has to announce total war has already misunderstood who they're fighting. Across the stars, the Galactic Council believed they had just unleashed terror. They believed humans would panic. They believed cities would riot, markets would collapse, and leaders would beg for mercy. What they didn't know, what no alien species ever seemed to grasp, was that humanity had spent its entire existence living under the quiet assumption that someone, somewhere, was going to try to kill them. And they planned accordingly. On Earth, the announcement barely made a dent. Commuters complained about the interruption. A talk show host joked that at least aliens had better timing than politicians. Social media exploded, not with fear, but with memes. One image showed the Chancellor's face pasted onto a cat, captioned, "Declare war before coffee? Rookie mistake." In a small bar outside Krakow, a retired tank commander laughed so hard he spilled his drink. They finally did it, he said to no one in particular. Idiots. In the depths of human-controlled space, far from public eyes, things moved faster. Black sites activated. Old encryption keys, long thought obsolete, came alive. Warships that had been decommissioned in paperwork only began warming reactors that hadn't seen power in decades. Humanity did not scramble. It unlocked. At 9:17, the first Council fleet crossed into what they considered contested territory. They came in perfect formation, thousands of ships sliding out of hyperspace like a steel tide. Battleships bristling with plasma lances. Carriers vomiting out fighter swarms. Command vessels broadcasting their presence on every channel. It was a statement. It was also a mistake. Where are the human defenses? One Council admiral asked, his frills twitching with unease. Sensors showed empty space. No fleets. No minefields. No energy shields flaring to life. Scans detect no organized resistance, an aide replied. The admiral relaxed. As expected. Predators often flee when confronted by a superior force. Then the space between the ships collapsed. No warning. No buildup. Gravity itself twisted, folding inward like a clenched fist. 3 cruisers vanished instantly, stretched into nothing by forces their designers had never imagined fighting. Alarm screamed. "What is happening?" the admiral shouted. "Localized singularities," a technician cried. "Artificial, planted in advance." The formation shattered as ships tried to flee, slamming into one another, tearing themselves apart under sudden, merciless physics. Fighters were swallowed whole. Capital ships split like rotten fruit. On a barren rock light years away, a human engineer watched the chaos on a grainy feed. "Told them spacing was too tight," she said, marking a clipboard. "Newton trap still effective." "Good." The Council fleet tried to respond, firing blindly, screaming orders, but there was nothing to shoot. No enemy ships. Just space itself, turned hostile. As the survivors limped back across the border, a single transmission cut through their panic. A human face appeared on their screens. Not armored. Not snarling. Just tired. Admiral Holt. "You crossed into our space with weapons hot," he said evenly. "That counts as an attack. We've logged it." The Council Admiral snarled. "You call this warfare? You hide behind tricks." Holt nodded. "Welcome to asymmetry." The feed cut. Back on Luna, Holt set his mug down and exhaled. "Notify everyone," he said quietly. "Phase 1 is complete." An aide swallowed. "Sir, that was just Phase 1. Holt's eyes hardened. "They declared war on humanity," he said. "All of it." Outside the viewport, Earth hung in the void, blue, fragile, and very, very armed. And somewhere deep in the human psyche, an old instinct stirred. Not fear. Not rage. Preparation. Because for humans, war wasn't a catastrophe. It was just another day. The Galactic Council had expected counterattacks. They expected fleets surging forward, proud banners unfurled, a neat and comprehensible enemy they could measure, classify, and ultimately break. What they got instead was missing inventory. The first report came from a logistics hub on the outer rim of Council space. A fuel convoy, 12 heavy tankers, fully escorted, simply failed to arrive. No distress call. No wreckage. Just absence. Within hours it happened again. Then again. By the end of the first week, 27 supply convoys were unaccounted for, and Council admirals were discovering a truth humans had learned the hard way centuries earlier. You can't fight if you can't eat. You can't move if you can't refuel. And you can't win if your enemy refuses to fight fair. On the bridge of the Karth battleship Unyielding Mandate, Captain Cyrex paced in mounting agitation. "This is piracy," he snapped. "Send a protest to the Council. Demand retaliation." An aide hesitated. "Sir, the pirates are human." Cyrex froze. "Human warships?" "No, sir. Civilian hulls. Modified freighters. Mining rigs. One appears to be a luxury liner." The captain's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "They attack us with pleasure vessels?" The answer arrived moments later, literally. The lights flickered. The hull rang with the unmistakable sound of cutting torches. Boarding alarms wailed. "Security to Deck 7!" someone screamed. "They're inside!" The breach blew inward, and humans poured through in mismatched armor, weapons older than some Council civilizations. Their movements were precise, economical. Not soldiers by doctrine, but by experience. One of them stepped forward, visor up. He was old by human standards, his beard streaked with gray, eyes sharp and utterly unafraid. "Morning," he said pleasantly. "Name's Cole. We'll be taking your fuel." Cyrex drew his sidearm. "You dare!" Cole shot the weapon out of his claw without looking. "You're not worth killing," Cole said. And frankly, we're on a schedule. Within minutes, the unyielding mandate was adrift, its tanks drained, its data cores copied, its crew locked safely in life support sections with enough rations to survive. A single message was left on the bridge, scrawled in thick black marker on a metal panel. You should have guarded your supply lines. Across Council space, panic began to spread. Warships sat idle, power reserves dwindling. Fighter wings were grounded. Planetary defenses ran on emergency cycles, governors forced to choose between shielding cities or keeping hospitals lit. And still, no great human fleet appeared. Instead, the humans talked. Everywhere. Council channels, once pristine and tightly controlled, began leaking footage. Old footage. Forbidden footage. Human intelligence operatives dumped archives onto the Galactic Net. Council, pacification, campaigns, sterilized in official records, revealed in brutal detail. Cities burned. Species erased. Survivors enslaved. The Council screamed that it was propaganda. Then neutral worlds began recognizing their own dead. On a mid-Council planet, a junior administrator watched footage of his grandmother's homeworld being reduced to glass centuries ago. They lied, he whispered. His supervisor turned away. Focus on your duty. I am, the administrator replied, and quietly sabotaged the planetary defense grid. Humanity didn't just fight with weapons. They fought with memory. The next shock came at Caro's Junction, a trade nexus linking 6 major hyperspace lanes. Council Command had fortified it heavily, confident that if nothing else, they could hold the choke point. Human drop pods fell like meteors. They didn't target military installations. They hit media centers, government buildings, data archives, and they broadcast. Every screen on Caro's lit up with human faces, men and women, young and old, some scarred, some smiling grimly. An elderly woman appeared first. My name is Margaret Hale, she said softly. My species was declared non-compliant by this council 300 years ago. The feed shifted, horrific images of her world's destruction. We survived, she continued. But we remember. And now, so should you. Riots erupted within hours. Council garrisons found themselves surrounded not by humans, but by their own citizens. In a war room light years away, the High Chancellor slammed his claws into a table. This is chaos, he roared. They are turning our people against us. A strategist answered in a trembling voice. They are not turning them. They are informing them. The Chancellor's eyes widened slowly. For millennia, the strategist continued, we ruled through controlled narrative. Humans don't control narratives. They release them. Silence followed. Then the first defection. A minor empire announced it would no longer support council operations. Then another. Then 3 more. Human envoys didn't gloat. They didn't threaten. They simply said, we won't shoot you if you stop shooting us. For many, that was enough. By the end of the second month, the war map looked wrong. The council still held territory. But it was hollow. Fleets starved. Allies vanished. Citizens rebelled. Supply lines were ghost stories told to frighten children. And still, humanity had not committed its main strength. In Luna Command, Admiral Holt studied the projections with grim satisfaction. Phase 2 is working, an officer said. Council cohesion is collapsing. Holt nodded. Good. That means they're about to do something stupid. What kind of stupid, sir? Holt's gaze shifted to Earth's location on the display. The kind that aims for home. Outside, the stars burned cold and indifferent. And somewhere in council space, desperation was already sharpening its knives. Desperation did what it always did. It stripped away restraint. Inside the shattered halls of the Galactic Council, panic replaced ceremony. Banners lay torn. Thrones sat empty. What remained of the council leadership argued in overlapping voices, fear bleeding through centuries of manufactured superiority. They are bleeding us without fighting, one delegate shrieked. Our fleets starve while their civilians laugh. Another slammed a clawed fist onto the stone table. Then stop pretending this is a limited war. End it. Burn their cradle world. The chamber fell silent. Planetary reduction. The word wasn't spoken often. It didn't need to be. Entire civilizations had vanished under its authority, reduced to footnotes and warnings. The Council had always reserved it for anomalies, species too stubborn, too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Humans had become that anomaly. The High Chancellor's mandibles trembled as he looked around the room. Authorize it, he said at last. If we cannot rule them, we will erase them. The vote was not unanimous. It didn't need to be. Within hours, a strike fleet assembled in the shadow of a dead star, its ships stripped of insignia, transponders dark. Not a declaration force, not a symbol. An executioner. Their course was simple. Sol. They avoided main lanes, skirting human patrols, running on minimal missions. Council doctrine assumed humans relied on centralized detection, predictable patterns. It was another mistake. At the edge of the Sol system, far beyond Neptune's frozen orbit, something old stirred. The humans called them retired assets. Ships built in an age when humanity still expected to die alone in the universe. Hulls layered in brute mass instead of elegance. Cannons designed before treaties, before ethics committees, before anyone pretended war could be clean. They had been mothballed, not dismantled. Just in case. Deep inside Fortress Station Aegis, warning lights bloomed. A technician froze. Contact. Multiple. No transponders. An older officer leaned in, eyes narrowing. Those trajectories, they're not raiders. A chill spread through the room. They're headed straight in. The alarms reached Luna Command seconds later. Admiral Holt didn't shout. He didn't curse. He simply closed his eyes. So, he said quietly, they chose genocide. A young officer swallowed hard. Sir, if they reach Earth. They won't, Holt replied. Activate the relics. Across the system, ancient warships powered up. Their reactors roared to life with a sound like distant thunder. Hull plating separated, revealing spinal weapons the size of skyscrapers, mass drivers capable of accelerating continent-killing slugs to relativistic speed. The Council strike fleet emerged from stealth and saw them. What are those? A Council commander whispered. His sensor officer's voice broke. They're old. Very old. But their output, by the stars, their output is off the scale. The humans hailed them. A single channel. Clear. Unencrypted. Admiral Holt's face filled the bridge screens. You turned off your transponders, he said calmly. You aimed for our home. That makes this simple. The Council commander sneered. You cannot stop us in time. Holt nodded once. We know. The human ships fired. There was no dramatic light show. No screaming beams. Just impact. Massive tungsten slugs crossed the distance at fractions of light speed, invisible until they hit. Council cruisers vanished in expanding clouds of plasma, shields irrelevant against kinetic energy measured in apocalypses. Return fire blossomed, plasma, antimatter, desperation, but the old human hulls absorbed it, bleeding heat and venting atmosphere without slowing. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, nothing hostile remained. Debris fields glittered where a fleet had been. The last transmission from the Council strike force reached Sol before the signal died. A junior officer, his carapace cracked, stared into the camera in disbelief. They didn't maneuver, he whispered. They just endured. Silence followed. On Earth, most people never knew how close annihilation had come. The skies stayed blue. Children went to school. Old men played chess in parks. Humanity had always been good at shielding its civilians from the worst truths. In Council space, the truth arrived like a hammer. Humanity released the recordings. Every world saw it: the unauthorized strike, the plotted genocide, the votes cast in shadow. Species that had tolerated the Council out of fear now saw the noose meant for them. Rebellions ignited. Fleets mutinied. Governors declared independence overnight. The council, already hollowed, began to collapse under its own weight. In the ruins of the council chamber, the High Chancellor stood before a human delegation. His once proud carapace was dull, cracked. "You could have destroyed us," he rasped. "Why didn't you?" Admiral Holt studied him for a long moment. "Because we've been where you are," Holt said. "And because someone once chose not to finish us." The Chancellor lowered himself to the floor. "What happens now?" Holt turned away. "No," he said. "We make sure you can never do this again." The war wasn't over. But it had changed. And for the first time since the Declaration, the galaxy understood something terrifyingly clear. Humanity was not fighting to win territory. They were fighting to end a system. And they were very, very good at it. The war didn't end with treaties. It ended with precedent. The remnants of the Galactic Council, hollow shells of pride and hubris, were replaced by the Assembly of Worlds, a chaotic, democratic mess where no one species ruled unchecked. Human delegates did not sit above others. They didn't gloat. They simply reminded everyone that an action had consequences. Humanity didn't annex council worlds. They didn't conquer planets or demand tribute. They claimed responsibility, messy, exhausting, morally gray responsibility. Every system that had seen their wrath remembered it. Every species that had doubted them learned the same lesson: do not underestimate humans. Across the galaxy, ships bore new insignias, symbols of human-led coalitions, of protection and cooperation. And yet, for every symbol, there were whispers of what had been lost, fleets shattered, worlds nearly scorched, civilizations almost erased. Humanity had delivered justice, but it had been brutal. On Earth, the public never understood the full scale. Children played while parents whispered in bars about the time humans had stopped an entire armada with a coffee-stained admiral and some old ships. Admiral Holt, older now, graying hair even more pronounced, sat on a porch overlooking a rebuilt coastline. A reporter asked, "Sir, do you regret it? The way you fought?" Holt lit a cigar and exhaled slowly, smoke curling into the crimson sunset. "Regret?" he said. "We didn't start it. They declared war. They aimed for our homes, our children. We finished it. That's all a species can do. And kid, if you're lucky, that's all you ever have to do." In the stars, the phrase spread quickly. First as a warning. Then as legend. Don't poke the humans. They'll treat it like just another day. And for once, the galaxy listened. Somewhere in the void, survivors of the old Council fleet whispered stories of Earth's defenses, of its swarms of mercenaries, of its retired ships firing weapons built before the oldest empire had even known peace. They spoke of clever traps, of data raids, of justice served with a grin. It was half myth, half warning. Fully terrifying. And on Earth, humans, still mostly oblivious to the fear they inspired, continued their lives. Farmers plowed, children learned, and scientists tinkered in labs with eyes glinting at possibilities. They had survived the galaxy's wrath and reshaped it, not as conquerors, but as humans always were, stubborn, unpredictable, and unwilling to be ruled. Admiral Holt stared at the horizon, the last rays of sunlight reflecting in his tired eyes. The universe had learned a lesson the hard way. Humanity was not a species to negotiate with, not a species to scare, and certainly not a species to underestimate. They treated war like a Tuesday. And the galaxy would never forget it.